All right. Welcome all to the Off the Rails Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. If you could, hit that like and subscribe button. We're getting some really good content. Later today, we're going to have Brother Brian on. We're going to talk about the opening of baseball. We're going to also probably delve into the Trevor Bauer situation and maybe Julio Arias. I don't know. We kind of just start on a topic and we just see where it ends up, which makes for some really exciting dialogue. March Madness comes out. We got the Sweet 16 now. We didn't have very many upsets in the first two rounds, but boy, now we got some heavy hitters. We're going to see some ones and twos playing, and it's a chalk field, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get good games. I'm hoping we get games like we had with UConn and Florida and Gonzaga and Houston. I mean, that was some stellar basketball. It was just really, really good stuff. And that's the kind of stuff the fans really can't wait to see more of. I think we're going to get a lot of it this weekend. All right, let's go into some sports headlines. Get you up to date here. And the NCAA football, I know that's not really a big topic, but Georgia wide receiver Nitro Tussle was driving 107 miles an hour when arrested on March 10th. It's amazing how this stuff goes away. And he was going 107. And this is the same program at Georgia where in January 2023, just hours after a celebration for their second consecutive national title, offensive lineman Devin Wilcock and recruiting staffer, wink, wink, Chandler LaCroix were both killed in an auto accident when they were racing Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was unscathed. I don't believe there was, I think the charges were misdemeanors. At the end of the day, I used to live in Lexington. And I lived in Lexington, Kentucky, when they were at the height of their basketball powers. And this is the Rick Pitino era, 94, 95, 96. And the Wildcat Lodge where the players stayed then was better than any Marriott. It was an elegant place. I never went in. I just heard the stories. But those players were literally celebrities in town. They'd go to the steakhouse. Everything was free. They'd go wherever they want. They did whatever they want. There was never anything on the police blotter. I'm sure they were out doing whatever they were doing. But they are the stars. In these southern college towns, that's the pro team, right? You're not going to mess with them. And that's what's going on here in Athens, Georgia. Nobody does anything. I'm surprised the guy actually didn't get off without, just telling him to go away. And I'm sure he probably has previously, But, I don't even know how Kirby Smart rolls it in because, they quote-unquote indefinitely suspended him. Trust me. He'll be there for practice in the summer. He'll be there. He's clued in. Slapped his hand, 107. Yeah, okay. Didn't kill anybody this time. That's the money machine. And think about this. If you really discipline him, he can go in the transfer portal. See ya. What are you going to really do? And I saw, I'm trying to think of who the podcaster was. It was a big name. I think it might have been Todd McShay, and he was talking about, this is out of control, what these students are getting. You know what? You basically treated them like slaves, indentured servants for literally the last 80 years. And now they finally have some remuneration. They can get in the transfer portal. Big deal. It's about time. When the pendulum is always this way, when it swings back, it usually goes a little too far. Maybe it's going a little too far. I don't even know that. But his argument was, well, you see all these coaches like Saban, Jay Wright, they don't want to coach. They don't want to deal with all this. Okay, that's fine. Leave. You had no problem kicking players out of the program, suspending them, doing whatever you wanted to do. You know, it's so funny when these centers of power, the coaches, they are on the other side of it, and they've actually got to treat these players with respect. You know, they're saying, oh, we got to re-recruit them. No, you just need to treat them with respect. That's really what you need to. And maybe there's a reason Urban Meyer hasn't come back as a coach, because he is infamous for treating his players like dog shit. Straight up. I mean, we saw how he treated the adults in Jacksonville. Can you imagine what he does to the players? Yeah. Sure, it's real good. There's a reason he's not back as a coach. But I was talking to a friend today, and I do think we're going to see him back within a year. I think if Brian Kelly doesn't win at LSU, I think you're going to see him down there. They're just going to write the check. $100 million? Come on down. And he ain't turning down $100 million to go to LSU. Tell you, you heard it here first. NBA, the greatest of all time, LeBron James, had a putback at the buzzer, 0.2 seconds, lifts the Lakers over the Indiana Pacers, 120-119. Ended the Lakers' 3-game losing streak, stopped Indiana's 5-game winning streak. The guy keeps producing. You know, I mean, why would you want that guy to leave? Enjoy these moments, because they're special. He literally is the greatest of all time. I don't want to hear the Jordan BS. Kyrie Irving had successful ACL surgery. They say his timeline is anywhere between 9 months and a year to come back. And in the offseason, the Mavericks get the pleasure of trying to re-sign him. All right. Sounds good. God, can you imagine if they got to give him a max deal? Oh, my God. Well, you know what? You reap what you sow. They're bloody incompetent. NFL, Russell Wilson, in meeting the New York media, announced that he expects to be the starting quarterback. I guess what else is he really supposed to say, right? He's a talented quarterback. He's going to be competing with Jameis Winston. We're going to see how that goes. I think at this point, Joe Shane, Brian Daboll are trying to save their jobs. They need to at least get to 6 wins. They got to show some improvement. The over-under for him is 3.5 in Vegas. We're going to see what happens there. NCAA basketball, like I said, we got the tournament going on today. Maryland's going to try and stay focused as Kevin Willard has basically got 1 foot out of the door going back to Villanova. I think it's a done deal. I think, he's not. I mean, maybe if Maryland wins the title, he'll stay, or maybe Final Four, he stays. There might be too much pressure in the ecosystem, but he's a Villanova guy. Today, opening day, we're going to see the Dodgers. We're finally going to get baseball back in the news media cycle, and I'm proud of that. I don't like the Dodgers, but you know what? I applaud the greatness of them. They are truly, in America, the greatest sports franchise. They are run the best. They spend the money. They're just brilliant. I mean, I look at that lineup, and, I do gamble. Not really a lot, but I do gamble. I've gambled for 35, 40 years on sports. And I kind of regret about a month ago at the Westgate in Vegas, I saw it was 8-1 for them to break the Mariners record of 116 wins. And I was so tempted. And, when you gamble and you go through these sports books, you see a million props. And you want to put 20 on this, you want to put 50, you want to put 100 on that, whatever it is. And most of the time, you're better off not doing it, because I don't care if they're giving you great value. You got to hit it. But that's a bet I really have regretted, because I do think the Dodgers are capable of winning 120 games. I really do. I just look at that roster, and it is stacked on stacked. And, I'm seeing the flags come out here in Los Angeles. We're seeing more and more of that. And, I applaud them. I mean, it's gonna get baseball back on the national scene, and I'm tired of seeing all these morning shows, First Take, etc., Greenberg, whatever it is, and they never talk about baseball. They talk about basketball, and then they talk about football. And then when they're not talking about football, they're talking about preseason football. When they're not talking about that, they're talking about the draft. They're talking about this. Come on, man, grow up. Let's talk about baseball a little. Jesus Christ, right? Let's just talk about some baseball. All right. That's it for today. If you could, hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. Leave some comments. I always appreciate knowing what you're thinking, and I will see you tomorrow.